Hi, everybody, and welcome back to a weekend video that has ended the month of April 2021. This is Wes with Pikes Peak Trades. Wish you all a very wonderful weekend. And we've got a lot to look at here. We've got monthly charts, we've got some very interesting weekly charts. We've got some evidence, I think, that's going to indicate that we're in, I think, for a very, very interesting week. I'm going to try to be balanced, going to try to present it in both sides as I see it. As it stands right now, this is probably one of the more indecisive weekends that I've felt in quite a while, where I don't have a good leaning from a probability perspective. If I was required to give you my tilt, I'm actually going to lean a little bit bearish, and I'm going to show you a few things on the different time frames, give you the evidence, and really just kind of offer that we're at a pretty important inflection point. Think about the end of the month. Think about the possibility of just a lot of expiring and exercising of a significant amount of option contracts. We had probably the most important earnings week of the quarter, with all of the mega cap big tech names reporting this week. Maybe now the market is finally free to trend, and we're going to see what direction that's going to be in. So let's jump in. We're going to look at the SPX monthly here. You're going to see there are not many monthly candles that are concerning. This is a very healthy monthly candle, and I still have it tracking in my black intermediate wave 3 of primary 1. You look here, everything looks good. We get into the weekly time frames. That's where I'm starting to hesitate. So into the weekly time frames, if you zoom in on that candle, that's got the look of a shooting star. It's probably not a gravestone doji, probably not the most bearish kind of candle that you can see during a week that it sets an all-time high, but it is concerning. This is a potential topping candle, which of course is going to make you wonder, well, what kind of top might it be if in fact it does resolve? Now remember that either gravestone doji or shooting star candles are only confirmed by the next candle. So there's no guarantee that just because this weekly candle looks a little bit suspect, that we're actually going to see a bearish week. If we do, to take you into where I have those wave counts, I would still say it's of a minute degree. I'm not going to give this a high significance. I do think we're still on track to challenge at some point this summer 4,400 and eventually higher. But I've got here in the blue count the possibility that on Thursday we set kind of this minute degree high. This would actually not be a minute degree. This would be a minuet, which would then be pulling the SPX back, maybe here to this lower rail support that caught the same degree wave 2 low. Let's say low 4,000s would be where I think we could go. You'll notice it closed right on the day Friday, right above that very, very trend following important 8-day EMA. So if we see that break Monday down with the close below, that needs to be your clue. Take risk off the table. We're probably in for a bearish couple of days. Now, taking you into the smaller time frames here, let's look first at the futures. And on the futures, this pivot area right in the 465 to 475 range all week was crucial. This is actually not even just 1 week. This is the last 2 weeks of April. And I had said, expect a reaction here and expect a reaction here. We absolutely got it. What I didn't expect on Friday was that we would just pull back and actually make a lower low. So I've given that a degree upgrade. I think this is now a degree 4 within this wave 3 count if it sticks. If it doesn't stick, here's that blue count corresponding on the SPX. And if that happens, I think we're in for a tumble. I think Monday would be a gap down red because I think we've already got an A down, a B up, and I think that we're just within here this C leg down. So if we do see the resolution to the downside, I do think the count suggests it's going to happen quickly and it's going to probably be a little bit ugly. Otherwise, If we found support again here at an important pivot at this sub-degree 4 low, then I think next week could be very, very bullish. So here's why, I said I'm a little indecisive. I can't give you a strong edge because really the wave counts are what I call binary. It either looks to be a big move up strongly into the mid 4200s, or I think a big move down into the low 4100s. So in that way, I think it was wise at the end of the week to take some risk off the table. I did leave a few longs in play, but I definitely de-risked, and I thought that was just a good idea going into a weekend. End of the month, start of the new month, May has some seasonality that's questionable with some of those weekly candles. So we get into the cash SPX here, and you're going to see it's the same count. A little more detail digging into what could be that bearish C leg down. And then you've got fibs. So you've got fibs in the low 4100s, but also below it at about 4080. And if we were looking for, would there be moving average support to catch it, you'd look first at the 21-day, then you'd look at the 34-day. And those two EMAs line up perfectly with those two fibs that you see in blue. So if it's bearish, one of those fibs I think will catch it. I am not calling any sort of major top here. I don't think the divergence on the larger time frames is yet in place. Let's take a look at the Qs. So we get into the Q monthlies, and again, nothing concerning that we're going to see here on a monthly candle. We're going to see up almost 6% on the month, obviously with the new all-time high. We get it into the weekly again. This is the time frame. So we get this weekly time frame. I'm thinking, yeah, could we have weakness for a week? So into the weekly time frame, and again, that's a very similar looking, possibly shooting star candle. If you zoom in, you probably want a little less shadow on the lower wick of that. But again, it has to be proven to resolve bearishly. I've got a more bearish count here in place. I do think that very bearish count is of low probability. I would have this in a much more similar degree to what we would have the SPX. So here on the Qs, it would again coincide to a degree 4. That we've topped the 3, we set a 4, and again, I'd be looking for those EMAs. So a 21 or 34 EMA to try to catch it at some point in the middle of the week. Now, obviously, my black is my primary, so I'm still going to leave that as a main count. And then looking into the shorter term time frames, we can get to NQ, and you're going to see that count in red corresponds to what you just saw bearishly in blue on the Qs. Now, why is there a different count here in blue? Well, just a little bit of a creative possibility that what if the range-bound trade continues throughout the week? So could we just have a big 2-week long triangle? And that's what I would offer. If we can't see here the 1450, 60 pivot area break, if there's another rejection like's happened, 1, 2, 3, 4, if it happens a 5th time, I think we need to be looking at that triangle count. And that would draw things out. It would prevent the big breakdown. Just give, again, maybe the market time to make up its mind. Would it absolutely be frustrating? Absolutely. So again, I just introduced to you a lot of possibilities here. I don't have a strong edge, as I've said. We've just got to see what happens. I present to you these alternatives not as a way of bailing myself out. That's not it at all. I'm simply wanting to be ready. I'm wanting to be ready for whatever the market gives. I'm going to immediately be ready to adjust. If it's a gap down, if it's a gap up that stalls, if it's a gap up that goes, I've got the counts ready for it. And that's just the probability perspective of Elliott Wave. And if you don't like that uncertainty, then I don't think you understand the nature of what Elliott Wave is trying to do. It is not about prediction at all. It is about the probability of entry with your projection. Okay, so put the fibs with the channels with the counts, and I'm just trying to give you probabilities of what could happen, and then we let the price action dictate. So here into the Qs, you're going to see that blue count that was on the daily. If we get that gap down open, we're going to be looking for the low 330s at those daily EMAs to catch it. Otherwise, it actually, Qs didn't set a lower low than it did on Thursday. So it's possible that we've just got a 1-2 and we're going to blast off into a 3 of 3. So notice that this could actually be a powerful trending move if we actually get the resolution upwards. Okay, so let's get into the other ETFs. Let's get into IWM with an inside month. Interesting. So the other two that you saw had new all-time highs, not IWM. An inside month, that's pretty much a neutral doji looking candle. But again, we get to the weekly, and this is the one I don't like. Okay, so that is much more of the classic shooting star, right above support. And I've had to give this a degree change. So my primary degree change now on IWM is I think it's going lower. So I think we do see this as a minor 2 to challenge more of these MAs, maybe even a thrust down below it, just to maybe flesh out some weak hands. I could potentially entertain here a very bullish nested 1-2, 1-2. It doesn't have the right look. And I think we've got a pretty well established channel here. Now, it is possible that this wave 2 is in at a shallow 38% fib. And, our clue would be a gap up with a back test that runs. We've got a lot of space in here up to the next pivot resistance, which is very close to the all-time high around 234. Into XLF, we'll see again healthy candles. This is a weekly candle that is healthy. Financials have just been very, very solid. And where would I have those on a smaller time frame? If there is to be a pullback, I think it's of the degree of SPX and QQQ. I think it's going to be a degree 4, still within a strong intermediate 3. And that would just pull it back, I think, into the mid 30s. So we're well, we don't have much range here. So low 35s if we're going to see that pullback that corresponds market wide. And you don't get really a significant sell-off unless you see financials sell. So it's possible that those could actually be pretty shallow. And we see the other indices still take some heat. So let's get into some individual names. And we've got to look at the big names, especially here at the end of the month. And so here we have Apple. And I think I actually have Apple on a monthly chart. So here we go with Apple. This is actually its weekly. And I wanted to highlight here the weekly because it's really ugly. It is a bearish outside engulfing. And it's rare for that not to follow through. So this is definitely evidence of a potential topping candle. And with this name, I had that more bearish red count in Qs. I got to leave it here in Apple too. You report blowout earnings, but you just don't get any follow through. It's got to get your attention, especially how Friday finished. Finishing a week with a candle like this. So I've got the concerns here that we've got more work to do lower. Now, I'm putting that red in, and there's a lot of waivers that I respect and follow and enjoy interacting with where the red count is their primary count, their main count. It's not my main count. So I could see this potential bull flag catching this pivot support, and this would be a really good place to buy. You've got fib, you've got horizontal, and you've got diagonal rail support. You've got a triple support here. If we see that gap down Monday that holds, I'm going to be really tempted to enter. So got to be careful though, because you're on guard for a much more bearish red, but that would be a possible entry here on Apple. We get it into the shorter term time frames, and you'll just see just a little more detail on the hourly. This would be that lower kick. Now, interesting, Apple, like most of the other big boys, it's a gap filling machine. There is a gap right in here around 128. I could see an overshoot down to close that gap. So Gaps are kind of like magnets, especially if we think we're in a short-term downtrend. I could see that Monday gap down, weakness into the day that closes it, and then I could see the reversal. And maybe it doesn't even take Monday, maybe it spills into Tuesday, but let's just wait and see. But I think the projection needs to be in place if that could happen. Let's get into the other big boys. Let's take a look here at Amazon. We're looking here at the weekly, a strong week for Amazon. Obviously, you're following earnings, but a little bit of a suspect sell-off. We had the market that didn't carry through, so then Amazon, had some weakness late in the day. I would have any continuing weakness in the same place as Apple, in kind of a degree 4. So that's going to be right here. It is also possible that wave is in. It would be shallow, but it's possible. And could we just see Amazon pull back to let these MAs catch up? So that would be the pullback trade that I would offer. If it's bullish, I think it's a big time bullish move. And let me show you that into the short term. And that's going to be in purple. You'll see a few of these very bullish alternatives. And that would be that we've just put in 1212. And if we conquer this potential bull flag with the back test that breaks the rising resistance, that's very bullish. And I could see Amazon just run in a big way. Okay, so again, wish I could give you the probability that says I think it's going to happen. I just can't. You just need to be ready, flexible, adaptable, keep some powder dry, and just be ready to react to what the market's going to give you. So let's get into Facebook here. And I am going to show you the monthly on Facebook because we do have a lot more concerning divergence on Facebook because I don't have Facebook as having yet put in a cycle top. Without the longevity of an Apple, an Amazon, a Microsoft, could it be that we're approaching one? And the divergence that you see on the stochastics, on the RSI, is kind of what you look for as a cycle top approaches. But man, the strength of this month, 10% up, you're kind of thinking it'd be foolish to call that top. I do have a target, though, in the mid 330s. All right, so if we do see weakness that does not follow through, we've got to give that at least an acknowledgement. What would it look like on some shorter time frames here? So that was into the weekly. Onto the shorter time frames, interesting candle. So is that also a shooting star? Now it's not the actual top. Notice that this candle didn't even get back really into the body of that one. That was kind of that bearish looking doji. Do we just see a pullback to let the MAs catch up? And if that's going to happen, I think it's going to be a sub-degree wave 4. So not saying that this whole gap, this power earnings gap would fill, but could we see some weakness to just allow things to pull back before that next leg up? Let's do a couple more in the big tech space. So let's get into Google. Now, Google has been and still is one of the strongest charts out there. And just still a very, very healthy looking weekly chart. Yeah, overbought on the RSI, but no divergence. And overbought on the RSI just means strength here. So we can get into where might it be on the shorter term time frames. And with Google, I have it working on still finishing up an intermediate 3. So you're going to see it's possible that 4 is in. If there is a name here that I would think gives me a reason to think that we could just keep going up, it is Google. On the shorter term time frame, it is very possible that this wave 4 is in place and we've just put in a 1-2. You're going to see that purple count, kind of like Amazon. Otherwise, I think we've just got a 3 down, a 3 up, and we're working on a 3 down. So that would be a double zigzag there to finish up that wave 4, again, like Facebook, to let it catch up with those moving averages. Let's finish the last one here in the big tech space. Sorry, we're not going to leave out Tesla, obviously. We've got Microsoft. So Microsoft here on the monthly, again, there's not much to be concerned about. There is some potential divergence against the August high, but yet still room for that to run and actually not set in. we dig down into the weekly here, and this again is where I've got concerns. So it's really Apple and Microsoft's weekly candles along with the Q's candle. I mean, that makes sense. They're such a big component of the Q's. I went back and circled the same type of outside bearish engulfing, and you had it before the COVID crash, before a July pullback, before the mid-October pullback, the Feb pullback, and here it is again. Okay, so I am putting my primary count like Apple that we are going to pull back on Microsoft. Now, the other thing, though, that I would be offering is I do see similarities, though, and you'll see this, I think, really with Tesla, that it could actually be just more like the end of April 2020. Okay, so it's possible that the weakness that we're seeing on these candles doesn't actually follow through. And when I show you that on Tesla, I think you're going to see, let me get to the weekly here, really interesting fractal pattern possibly on the RSI. So with Tesla, this pattern from a significant low, up, down. So here we go, up, down, almost exactly the same fractal pattern. And then what resolved almost exactly a year ago was a huge week. Tesla had a great day Friday. And this is, again, like Google, some evidence that maybe we do get that move up. Again, I can't say with much probability in that favor, but we just got to be ready that it does actually happen. Let me do get back. I want to show you Microsoft on that daily, just to not leave out the detail. I have it in an ending diagonal 3-wave move. So this would be here setting an A, and then a B, and then setting a C up towards about 280. This would allow it to just kind of back test maybe here the 50-day if we do see that. On Tesla now, possibility that Tesla's in a very bullish. So I've got it as a nested 1-2. It's possible if this one could slide up, it would have hit nearly a perfect 0.618 fib. If you see this bull flag break up, I think Tesla could run. Okay, so again, we just want to be ready. I just want to present that evidence to you. Don't get locked into a bias, and I hope from following me that you appreciate the flexibility and the open-mindedness that I try to give. Now, I trade my primary count, okay? So I don't confuse that with how I position, but that does mean I'm cautious when I see the potential of the bearish alt. Certainly reduce the number of positions and definitely reduce the size. Okay, let's get into some other names that I think are pretty compelling. Let's take a look at Snap. So I really like Snap's setup here. I think a 1-2, a 1 with a running flat 2, maybe a 1-2. If we get the bullish resolution, I'm going to be looking at Snap. I like Snap here. Also like SE. So SE with a really strong move up out of its March lows to a wave 2. I think another wave 2 could have been put in there on Friday. I think SE is looking great. And into the small time frames, like what would be a triggering signal? Yeah, you guessed it. It's a bull flag. So we get up and out, maybe a back test, there's your entry, and I could see it running if we get that resolution. If not, I don't think SC is going to sell off hard. It didn't sell off hard on Friday, and in fact, actually, it was red to green for a while before the general market weakness cut it down. I think just another test to the bottom of that bull flag, and I might even actually use that as an entry. So I do a lot of times a bull flag with great reaction on the bottom. I like, if I'm seeing the general market bottom here, I like that kind of play for a reaction. I also like Zoom, and we got to save the Z for the last. So let me get into others that I do like here. So let me show you NVDA. Now, NVDA and ROKU actually here were frustrating to me. I got stopped out for small losses on these because I really thought we were going to get a running move. And instead, I think what we did just get was a deeper 2 pullback here on NVIDIA. But again, like SE, the possibility that we need a lower potential bull flag touch, also like what I showed you on Apple. This would actually set a lower low than what's already in place. Otherwise, it could be in a move up and out. And I like NVIDIA's chance to run like it did during this three wave. I think if we get a market that decides it wants to trend up, NVIDIA is one I think you want to try to ride. Okay, Roku, one that was really frustrating. I thought it was nested and ready. Maybe it still is, but it's just been hammered back by this diagonal resistance. It certainly happened again on Thursday with downside follow through Friday. Roku is a name that was so strong during the big growth move of 2020. It doesn't look real great. So I want to give it some time. I want to keep it on the watch list, but as of now, it's nothing like the setup for an SE, for an NVIDIA, for the other big tech names if we get the bullish resolution. Let's finish here with Zoom, getting back to the A to Z theme. So that would be Zoom here. I do like how Zoom is setting up, maybe for a run into its earnings here in early June. Could we have here a 1 with a 2 flat and another 1, 2? If it holds 314, 313 high-ish, that could be it. This could also be an inverted bullish hammer. So it's possible that Zoom set a low on Friday. We're going to see it eventually, maybe in this first minor wave, challenge back to 400. And on the short term, here with Zoom, I really like the activity along this lower rail. So this is one, could have had just kind of even a very small degree 1, 2. If we get the resolution, those names I like NVIDIA, I like SE, I like Snap, I like Zoom, outside of the normal big tech plays that I also know real well. Okay, so I hope you appreciate the balance here. Flexibility, adaptability is the name of the game at this stage. We just need to be ready. I don't want to be surprised. I never want to be surprised. Let me show one more thing here. If we do get a downside move, what I'm going to be looking at is I'm going to be looking at the NYMO closing outside its lower BB. And at the same time, the VIX closing above its upper BB. I think those are great potential buy triggers for an oversold market. And we know that market bottoms are events. They're V-shaped. Market tops are not. Black swan events out of the way, not counting those. Market tops are a rolling over process. If we see weakness Monday and we get those out of BB closes, I am probably going to go ahead and try to front run a chance. Considering that I do think the primary resolution is still upwards through the middle part of 2021. So I'll try to update that EOD Monday if we are red. Otherwise, you've got the possibilities that maybe now with the month, with all the earnings out of the way, the market's free to trend. Okay, so as always, thanks for the likes and follows. Thanks for the comments and feedback on Twitter. Here to try to keep us on the right side of the trade. Have a wonderful weekend, and let's look forward to what I think could be a pretty explosive week coming up here first week of May.